Today, we're going to talk with you about easing your transition to CentOS Stream or Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Hi, I'm Bex, Brian Exelbeard. I'm the community business owner in the Red Hat product management team for RHEL and the RHEL BU. I work with our upstream communities such as Fedora and CentOS on how Red Hat should interface with them and how they work with the Red Hat Enterprise Linux product that you know and love.
And my name is William Cordes. I'm the Director of Business Operations from the Red Hat Enterprise Linux Business Unit. And my responsibility is to help customers in terms of managing their relationship with Red Hat and how we deliver the value of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription.
Specifically, we're going to talk about three areas. We're going to discuss some announcements that the CentOS project made, talk about Red Hat strategy and how it relates to those announcements. And then we're going to go into easing your transition between CentOS Linux and either CentOS Stream or Red Hat Enterprise Linux. In December of last year, the CentOS project announced that they would begin shifting their focus to becoming a more contribution-oriented project. They wanted to use the opportunity that they had with CentOS Stream to actually influence Red Hat Enterprise Linux and to improve the overall Enterprise Linux space. As such, they're recommending that users of CentOS Linux migrate to either CentOS Stream or consider Red Hat Enterprise Linux for production use cases, to focus them around readying software for the next release of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or extending the operating system for new use cases. To that end, they announced a few dates. CentOS Linux 7 is going to continue to be built through June of 2024. This is a date that is tied to the Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7 lifecycle. CentOS Linux 8 is going to stop being built at the end of this year in December of 2021, and there will not be a CentOS Linux 9. CentOS Stream 8 has a lifecycle that will run through May of 2024. This is through the end of the full support phase of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. And CentOS Stream 9 is going to open up and become available in the second quarter of 2021. And it may actually be available by the time you're seeing this video. So how do these changes that the CentOS project made align with Red Hat strategy? To understand that, it's useful to make sure that we all understand what CentOS Stream is and how you can use it. CentOS Stream is a Linux distribution that has been designed to increase the transparency and collaboration around RHEL development. It is a continuously delivered distribution. This means that once it ships, there are no minor releases. It is a continuous stream of updates, whether those are bug fixes, enhancements, new features, whatever. The code that is in CentOS Stream, however, is tested and complete. It's not work in progress, it's not MVP, it's not best effort, it's Friday at 5 p.m. and it's time to commit my code. This is code that is ready to be used. It's an open source project that is very contributor friendly. And from the Red Hat perspective, it represents what we intend to ship in the next Red Hat Enterprise Linux minor release. As a customer, partner, or friend of the ecosystem, we believe CentOS Stream represents some real opportunities for you. For some of you, it'll be something to put into your CI pipeline. This will help you speed up your RHEL upgrades and catch any issues that you might have when upgrading to the next minor release of RHEL. Others of you will enjoy the opportunity of working side by side with Red Hat engineers. This might be on patches that you would be working with us to help your own use cases, or as an opportunity to explore areas and interests in the operating system that you haven't had the opportunity to use before. And lastly, some of you will want to collaborate with your industry peers and partners around specific use cases. You can do this in a CentOS special interest group. This is also an opportunity for you to create a level playing field for your vendors and partners to come together and work on specific projects for your organization. These projects would allow everybody to come together and collaborate in an open source friendly manner. So how does this align with the Red Hat business strategy? Well, if you look at the open source commercial business and development models as it has evolved over time with Red Hat, you'll see three distinct inflection points. The first of these is what we call the Fedora model. And it represents the difficult decision that we made to split Red Hat Linux into Fedora Linux and Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we did this because we recognized that one code base couldn't be two things at the same time. It couldn't be a fast-moving, integrative, innovative code base, such as is now Fedora Linux and run by the Fedora project, and at the same time be long-term stability and slow-moving. And so by splitting the code base in half, we got that innovative leading edge code for Fedora Linux, and we had the long-term production stable that you would expect for an enterprise use in Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The second inflection point occurs during what a lot of people think of as the virtualization wars. It's the CentOS model or the CentOS Linux model. And this is when we realized that the stacks that were being developed above the operating system were being challenged to be productized and also made enterprise ready. And so we partnered with the CentOS project to use CentOS Linux as a base for development for these stacks on top of the operating system. CentOS Linux had the advantage of it was stable enough, it was long-term enough, and it was close enough to RHEL that we could develop in these open source projects in an open source manner and help move code bases forward to become products that you could use in your enterprise. And this model worked really well. But we hit another inflection point. And this was around the speed at which the world is changing. We had two challenges. The first is, with the rise of DevOps and Agile and similar practices, everybody is simply moving faster. People are innovating at a greater and greater pace. And so they need to be closer and closer to unshipped code. The second was that the CentOS Linux model had exposed that you needed to be able to not just have a platform to build on, but you needed to be able to influence it. And the CentOS model didn't have any way of contributing and influencing RHEL built into it. So with the stream model, we have created an opportunity for those who wish to be fast moving, but also for these important projects that build on top of the operating system or extend the operating system to be able to come and make changes to the actual operating system itself, or to react to upcoming changes in the operating system faster and sooner. That leaves us with an ecosystem that looks like this. We have the Linux kernel and a collection of upstream open source projects. And all of those are pulled together in a way by Fedora Linux so that they become part of a cohesive operating system. They do a lot of this innovative packaging and other components to bring together the whole operating system. Additionally, they do work to extend the operating system. Fundamental changes at the operating system level take place in Fedora Linux. So think of things like modularity that just require lots of pieces of the operating system to be changed to accommodate this methodology. Fedora Linux is built into a platform that is released every 6 months. It targets desktop use cases and a variety of other interesting use cases that are of interest to the Fedora project. From Red Hat's perspective, we focus mostly around the integration work that they're doing for the operating system and the innovation work that they do in the operating system, as well as many of us choose to run it as our own desktop or laptop operating system. Every 3 years, we fork the Fedora Linux and we bring it into CentOS Stream to begin to release RHEL. In CentOS Stream, we work in a collaborative open source manner to improve the RHEL releases. The next minor release often being extremely critical to enterprises, which are going to run this for an extended period of time. Both Fedora Linux and CentOS Stream are open source Linux distributions, meaning anyone can contribute to them. However, CentOS Stream is only able to be committed to by Red Hat engineers. And the reason for this is because that commit represents our promise that we intend to ship that code in a future RHEL minor release. And so we control the commits that go into that stream so that we can guarantee that it will show up in a future RHEL release. As I mentioned before, CentOS Stream is continuously delivered. There are no minor releases during the CentOS Stream lifecycle for each CentOS Stream release. And it is a platform upon which many SIGs have been built to extend the operating system or to focus in on specific projects above the operating system. And finally, we have RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Red Hat Enterprise Linux is the production-grade, secure operating system with a long life cycle that you've come to rely on for your critical workloads. We believe that all production workloads belong on Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and it continues to be delivered as you have expected it, every 3 years for a major release and every 6 months for a minor release. Now, our goal with CentOS Stream is to move about 90% or so of RHEL development into the CentOS Stream project. There is about 10% or so of the development that is going to need to stay in RHEL though. And the reason for this is that we work on a lot of embargoed code. Sometimes that's code that we're working on with a partner for unreleased chipsets, for example. And in some cases, it's for CVEs that have not yet been made public. In both of those cases, we work on that code. We then release that code to our customers when the embargo expires, and that code is then ported into CentOS Stream so that all of those using CentOS Stream as a development base are able to absorb that change and continue developing on top of code that represents RHEL.
We believe that your operating system, development work, and desktop use cases belong on Fedora Linux. And we believe that if you're looking for a development experience around RHEL, there's a couple of good options for you. If you're an individual looking to build out a home lab, we offer RHEL through the Red Hat Developer Program. You can go to the website, sign up for it, download it. On the other hand, if you're part of an enterprise development team, such as those working on a line of business app, the Red Hat Developer Program Teams option will be of very good interest to you. We're going to talk about that more in a few minutes. If you're looking to ensure development compatibility with the next RHEL minor release, that RHEL +1 compatibility, we encourage you to take a look at CentOS Stream. It's also the place where you would go to participate in RHEL development and influence the direction of the next minor release of RHEL. If you're working on containerized applications, the RHEL UBI, the Universal Base Image, is your go-to place. It's a redistributable code base for secure containerized applications. And lastly, if you're a partner, hardware vendor, software vendor, reseller, the Red Hat Partner Connect program gives you access to all of this and even more from Red Hat.
Transitioning from CentOS Linux to CentOS Stream should be relatively easy. Remember that CentOS Stream is the next minor version of RHEL. So this is, in a way, just switching your repos and continuing to consume updates, not as big batches of minor releases, but as they're committed to the CentOS Stream repo. The two commands are listed here, and you'll find more information about transitioning and community support on the CentOS project. If you have systems, we invite you to actually check that out and give us feedback about how it goes and what challenges you find in using CentOS Stream. Transitioning from CentOS Linux to Red Enterprise Linux is a little bit different. The goal here is to make sure that as you're using Red Enterprise Linux for production, we want to make sure that we can deliver all the promises of Red Enterprise Linux once you're transitioned. Remember that not only do we have a secure, stable, high-performance operating system, we have a life cycle, we have support, we have hardware and software certification promises, and a whole ecosystem of solutions that we want to bring onto this platform and be able to support when you transition it. To make this easy, we've introduced some tooling called Convert to RHEL. It's designed to simplify migrations and make it easy for you to move from CentOS Linux 7 or 8 onto Red Enterprise Linux 7 or 8. It's self-service, and it helps you maintain the existing customizations, configurations, and preferences you've already built up on your installations. Once migrated, you can take advantage of all that the Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription has to offer. I would note that Red Enterprise Linux 6 is not something that we recommend using this tool to migrate to. We really suggest that if you have CentOS Linux 6 systems, that you spend some time also planning a migration to Red Enterprise Linux 7 or 8 as a part of that process. So as I mentioned, this is an officially supported path by Red Hat. We've introduced and established Convert to RHEL as an official component of Red Enterprise Linux. This means that it's fully backed and supported by Red Hat, and that the output of it is fully supported as well. We've also made it easier to access. It used to be available on the extra packages for Linux repo, and now we've actually made it available on ftp.redhat.com, fully signed packages from Red Hat with no restriction. So you can pick them up and put them on the target CentOS Linux systems that you want to migrate. It works well with satellite, with subscription management tools, or with local repositories you may have set up. And it's built-in checks and prerequisites and inspections to make sure that any problems that might present themselves in terms of the migration are flagged early as a part of the process. There's a full suite of documentation, knowledge base articles, and of course a support policy for you to look at. We encourage you to spend some time taking a look at it. If you need more help, there is services available from Red Hat and our partners to help you on the migration process. Once you're migrated, there are a lot of services built into your subscription that you can take advantage of that weren't available on CentOS Linux. We call this Red Hat Insights, and it is a suite of tools to help you manage your systems in a proactive manner. Of course, there's a subscriptions management solution called Subscription Watch to make sure you understand all the systems you're migrating and what subscriptions they're using out of your pool of subscriptions. There's Advisor to help you get customer recommendations and identify if issues that Red Hat had seen in supporting other customers apply to your system, including configuration problems and performance problems that might negatively affect your system, so you can prevent having to engage support and instead address those problems before they become a problem in your environment. There's abilities to actually deploy those with pre-built Ansible playbacks and actually address those issues. And of course, you can identify places where you have vulnerabilities or you need to have compliance situations remediated in your installations. And we understand that production isn't the only place in which you need to use Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And so as part of that process, we've been developing a whole set of additional programs to help address situations where our traditional ways of reaching customers haven't worked. In specific, we've revamped the Red Hat Developer Program to make it easier for customers to not only access it for individual developers, but to really bring their whole customer development teams and give them access to Red Enterprise Linux and all the developer content and support we have. We've also introduced a program specifically designed for open source projects and standards projects to get access to Red Enterprise Linux at no cost for their infrastructure. There's a blog post on reddit.com, which you could take a look at and gives instructions on how to reach out and get engaged in the process we have for that program. If you have more questions about these programs, please reach out to us at centosquestions@reddit.com, and we'll connect you with all the right teams and people who are working on these to make sure that they address your needs. I want to take a moment to talk about Red Hat Developer for Teams, which is part of the Red Hat Developer Program. We recognize that individual developers signing up en masse is obviously a big challenge operationally for an organization. So we want to make it easy for an organization to agree to the Red Hat developer terms on behalf of their customers, to leverage its agreement, and to easily internally distribute the content for developers at no cost. Of course, if individual developers need support as a part of their development process, need to be able to reach out and get help, we have, for Red Enterprise Linux, some paid support options that are also available as part of the program. All of this is available from Red Hat and can be fulfilled through our partners. So we encourage you to reach out either to your partner team or your Red Hat sales team to talk through the specifics of how we can bring this into the agreement you already have or include this in your next renewal. With that, we'd like to thank you for spending time with us today and hope this has served as a good introduction to migrating either to CentOS Stream or Red Enterprise Linux from CentOS Linux.